All right, thank you, Paul, for that intro. I very much appreciate it, and thank you so much for all of you for coming. And we couldn't have done this without Federated Conservationists of Westchester County. Big thanks to them for joining and partnering with us. The agenda you see on the screen, there's also a hard copy on each table with a QR code. That QR code will take you to the same agenda online, as well as all of our speaker bios, and we really have a packed agenda with a lot of expertise, so definitely go through and look at those. So WASS stands for Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions, and we are an alliance of individuals and community organizations from across Westchester County working to end Westchester's reliance on trash incineration, to improve the lives of the people, not only of Peekskill, as Paul mentioned, but everyone within our Westchester County airshed that breathe the emissions from the trash incinerator. So if I was going to, my goal with this intro talk is just to kind of make clear to everybody where we're starting from, like what the current situation is and the problem that we need to solve. And if I had to distill down this problem, it would be to tell you to remember the 3 P's. Incineration is bad for people, it's bad for the planet, and it's bad for our pocketbooks. And my day job, I am a cancer researcher, so everything I share with you today is factual, and we have all that source material, and if you want to access our fact sheet, the QR code will be in this slide presentation, and it's available at our table here on the left. So you can fact check me on all of these points. But so the first P, people. The incinerator is harming people. The wind waste, also called wheelabrator, if you've been here a long time, you might call it Resco, but that trash incinerator is the largest industrial air polluter in Westchester County. Westchester County gets an F from the American Lung Association for air quality. You can't get an F without the county's biggest industrial air polluter. And we know, and I'll show you a very short snippet of the data, but Peekskill residents have an increased rate of health problems that the science directly links to air pollution. It's bad for the planet because the emissions from that incinerator are contributing to climate change. The incinerator is the largest industrial source of greenhouse gas emissions in Westchester County. And it's bad for our pocketbooks in a lot of ways. It is one of the oldest incinerators in the nation. We need to be fiscally responsible in planning ahead for when that piece of infrastructure is no longer viable, and I think that time has already passed. So we need to plan ahead. When it fails, we are gonna have over 2,000 tons a day of waste that we need to manage. We aren't going to be able to make that transition on a dime. The contract is up in 2029. The county needs to be preparing yesterday. There's additionally healthcare costs associated with air pollution. I'll show you some of that data. And we know, and you'll learn more today, zero waste solutions are long-term, self-sustaining, job-creating. And that is where Westchester County should be going. So if you remember nothing else of my talk, the 3 Ps, people, planet, pocketbook. So right now, where does our trash go? Most of us, 90% of Westchester County residents are within the refuse disposal district, and that garbage goes to the incinerator in Peekskill. 76% of the trash that is burned in Peekskill is from Westchester County. A big chunk is from Connecticut, some from Brooklyn, and some from surrounding counties. And it should be clear, this trash incinerator is owned by the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency, and the county contracts with the corporation Wind Waste to operate it. So this is our municipal government making this decision on how to manage our waste. We need to hold them accountable for those decisions and those alternative solutions. So I made this a couple years ago when the incinerator turned 40, but it started operating in 1984. I was 4 years old. In the 40 plus years, just quick back of the envelope calculation, that's 40,000 tons of nitrous oxides, over a ton of lead, 840 pounds of mercury, almost 32 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions, and 8 million tons of toxic ash spewed into our air. And if you think you're not sending any garbage to a landfill, that's another part of that problem. We know, a lot of people say, oh, well, the incinerator generates electricity. Burning garbage is the most polluting way to generate energy. So that red square, that MSWI, that's Municipal Solid Waste Incinerator. We would be better off by a lot burning coal in Peekskill to generate that electricity. This is not a clean way or sustainable way or a green way to generate power. So saying we need that energy, that is not an excuse for sacrificing our planet and our health. But also, we're not saving landfills. We're still sending a lot to landfills. So depending on who you ask, for every 3 or 4 pounds of garbage you burn, you're left with pounds, I want to say tons, 4 tons of garbage you burn, you are left with 1 ton of toxic ash, because that is the ash left over from burning, and it is also mixed with all of the things that are accumulated in the smokestack that are part of the pollution controls that we don't want to get into the air. So they concentrate it down, mix it with that ash, and ship it to a landfill. And in that picture, you are seeing a baseball field, you are seeing a playground, you are seeing a brook. It is the Sprout Brook in Cortland, and that huge mountain behind it, that is 4 million tons of toxic ash sitting in the city of Peekskill's watershed. That is the first 4 million tons of ash generated at Wheelabrator. Now they send it to Putnam, Connecticut, that doesn't want it, and that are facing the health concerns of this toxic ash. We're talking PFAS, lead, cadmium, all kinds of things that are not safe for humans or other forms of life. I'm a cancer researcher by training. When I think of air pollution, this is the kind of thing I'm seeing. I'm seeing effects on intracellular pathways and cellular communications. That QR code links to our fact sheet. Everything I'm sharing with you, the citations, the emissions reports, all of it is there. But it is settled science that air pollution, even at legally allowable levels, is harmful to human health. The literature is clear. We know things like asthma, COPD, low birth weight infants, heart attacks, cancers, all of these things have been shown to be caused by air pollution. Not a correlation, but causation. The molecular mechanisms, not always fully understood. We can't trace a molecule of air pollution to someone's lungs and an asthma attack. But we know what is happening grossly with air pollution. But also not understood are the cumulative impacts on communities that are environmental justice communities like Peekskill that are facing lots of different sources of pollution. So I said I'd show you a snippet of data. This is from the 2021 New York State Department of Health Equity Report for the city of Peekskill. The blue bar, that is the rate of emergency room visits for asthma in Westchester County. The red bar is that rate for Peekskill. It is almost double the rest of Westchester County. That is what environmental racism looks like. And this is why it is a public health emergency that we address the reliance on incineration. How many kids with asthma in Peekskill is acceptable for the county to keep burning garbage? This is, so in 2010, the New York State DEC, Hudson River Sloop Clearwater, and the city of Peekskill did what's called an environmental justice inventory. Basically, we have a predominantly Black and brown community, but I just want to read some of that second bullet to give you an idea of what Peekskill has been living with for decades. Neighborhoods within a 12.5-mile radius of downtown Peekskill are home to at least 2 hazardous waste handlers, 7 hazardous waste facilities, 19 solid waste facilities, 27 major and minor air polluters, 87 industrial surface water sites, etc., etc. This is all within a 12.5-mile radius of downtown Peekskill. And even back in 2010, they named the trash incinerator, they called out the health effects. This has been known for a long time. More recently, New York State passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. As part of that, they had to come up with a criteria to measure just how bad some communities had it. And they call it the Disadvantaged Communities Criteria. Highlighted in purple is my census tract, where I live in Peekskill. It is also the census tract that includes the trash incinerator. And what they found by measuring the metrics on the right is that my census tract has a higher environmental burden than 98% of census tracts in the whole of New York State. They then measured the vulnerability score, meaning how equipped are people living in that area to deal with the health consequences. Do they have access to healthcare? Can they afford their electric bill? Those kinds of things. Our vulnerability score is higher than 84% of census tracts in New York State. I don't look like most of my neighbors. I am a white lady with a PhD in molecular biology, okay? But I have PTO from my job, and I can take a Friday off, and I can come together with you all and stand here and present this science. A lot of my neighbors don't do that. They don't have that opportunity. They don't have that privilege. So that's why I'm here being the messenger, but it's for my neighbors who are the ones who, when they hear the incinerator venting, they don't have money to pay their electric bill, so they can't go close the window and turn on the air conditioner. This is a picture that a community member took with a drone of Peekskill's riverfront. And this is how I would label it. So that first plume, that's from the BASF chemical plant. Then you got the plume from the trash incinerator. Then you've got the defunct nuclear power plant with 40 years of irradiated spent fuel, and it's a Superfund site because it's been leaking radioactive water into the Hudson, and the company wants to dump an additional 1 million gallons into the river. Then we've got the gypsum plant under the Hudson, under the nuke plant. 400 feet from my front door is the Algonquin gas transmission pipeline, carrying a huge proportion of fracked gas to New England, with a little lateral to go right to the trash incinerator, because the garbage doesn't burn itself. They use fracked gas to do that. We also have the PCB contaminated Hudson. We have bomb trains. We have sewage treatment plants. That's what makes an environmental justice community. And today, sorry, Rockland, the winds were taking the bulk of this pollution to you. This is a picture from my back door. That plume that you see is the trash incinerator. My husband took this. It's a still from a video. I'm not going to play it today because I don't want to deafen everyone, but he was alerted to a problem with the trash incinerator by the sound of what sounded like a jet engine taking off from our backyard. It was the trash incinerator. On the right is an image of our purple air monitor that I installed in my backyard. That very high spike, that's particulate matter at the time that this video is timestamped. So the incinerator company might tell you that their emissions are fine, it's healthy, it's legal. That red area, that is dangerous to anyone, not just people with other comorbidities or things that put them at risk. That's for anyone. And the community, this went on for a long time. These are some of the comments from social media and other places. Like, still roaring 17 hours later. I was walking by the riverfront. I have bronchiectasis and I'm still coughing. What's that smell? This is what it's like to live near a trash incinerator. This is the cost that we are paying so Westchester can keep burning garbage. And it's, as I said, environmental justice community. So we have not only the emissions from the incinerator and all those other air pollutions, we have the radionuclides leaking from the nuclear plant. We have the microplastics. We have people with disabilities, people with language barriers. Their immigration status might put them at risk. They don't have stable housing. They don't have access to healthcare. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about cumulative impacts. And Peekskill is vulnerable and should not be victimized by our municipal solutions for waste. I said about the costs, this is a study, and I have to be clear as a scientist, this is a preprint, so it has not been peer-reviewed yet. So I'm making that very clear, but these are their data. So the journal article is Health Damages and Disparities from Municipal and Medical Waste Incineration in Baltimore. And what they looked at was healthcare costs, and then they did the statistics to link the healthcare costs specifically from a wind waste trash incinerator and another medical incinerator in the area. And so what I've highlighted, in 2024, the wind waste incinerator caused an estimated $53.8 million in health damages in Maryland and Washington, D.C. That is what they attributed. Who is paying that for Westchester County? And what would be the number if we looked in our backyard? In addition to those health costs, incineration is just the most expensive way to manage waste. The red bar is waste to energy incineration. This is from the World Bank. This is not Courtney Williams. And what you can see is in lower, upper, middle, and upper income countries, it is across the board the most expensive way to manage waste. That's what's happening with our tax dollars. And if you look, I did just a quick back of the envelope calculation. This is from the county's own data from the budget. 360,000 tons of waste sent to Charles Point. That's the incinerator. And then from an article interview with our Deputy Commissioner Vitrone, he said the Westchester's paying about $80 a ton to burn the garbage there. That's $28.5 million a year. What could we be spending that money on when they tell us we can't do curbside compost pickup? And kind of to add insult to injury, on the right is a pie chart from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation of what we throw away. What's the components of municipal solid waste? Look at that list. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room knows how to recycle or divert or reuse the vast majority of that pie chart. This is doable. What we need is the people power and the political will to get it done. Yes, thank you. And I know we have a bunch of municipalities represented here, and I just want to give a round of applause to the municipal employees who are here today, repping their towns. You are where the rubber meets the road. You are the ones that are dealing with the problems we have now and that are going to be dealing with implementation, and it is so key that you are here today to learn, but also teach, so that we can learn from you about how we're going to get this done. WASS has rolled out a new initiative. We're calling it our city-by-city approach. We will come and have a discussion with your municipality and your DPW, the village manager, about what's going on with waste. We have a document that we prepare for you, all about solutions that could get you climate smart communities points, sources of funding, all of those things, but that we could also hear from you about what you need, or how we can help you, or how we can advocate with the county to get the solutions in place. So if you would like more info, shoot an email or come to talk to our volunteers at our table, but we really want to work with you to kind of bottom up this solution and show our county-wide decision makers in the refuse district that these things are doable. And that is it for me. And we're now going to hear from Kirsty Pecci, who is our keynote speaker. And I do briefly want to read her bio for those of you that aren't clicking through online. So Kirsty is the executive director of Just Zero, a national zero waste nonprofit that partners with communities, advocates, and policymakers across the country to implement just and equitable solutions to climate damaging and toxic production, consumption, and waste disposal practices. Kirsty established and was the director of the Zero Waste Program at Conservation Law Foundation and is a former MassPIRG staff attorney. Kirsty started her legal career as an associate in Nixon Peabody's Real Estate Environmental Practice Group. She's a graduate of Boston College Law School and Harvard University, and she joins us today from Sturbridge, Mass., where she lives. So with that, Kirsty.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Right, so I'm going to try to not be redundant and be efficient in my comments so that we can ask a lot of questions. And first off, thank you all for being here, especially, as Courtney said, those of you who are doing this work every day and had to put aside your long to-do list to come here. Thank you so much to WASS and Courtney. So glad to be here. And this is a great room and a great space. I call myself the trashy attorney. And I think that we have to not take these things too seriously, but everything that Courtney just told you is probably underestimated, honestly. Everybody in the county is a little sicker because of this facility. So, all there is to it. And if allowed to do so, when Wheelabrator or Resco, we'll keep running this facility until it literally falls into the river. And I know this because I've been working for decades with a group in Saugus that's been trying to shut down the Wynn incinerator there, which is actually the oldest in the country, built in 1974. It is broken down, there have been fires, there's all kinds of problems, but that's the reality. Everything Courtney said, and that's really my job here today, is to tell you that looking at this nationally, talking to people all over the country about these very same types of facilities and same types of issues, there are solutions that work, and then there are facilities that poison us. Very expensive facilities that poison us. And that's really all there is to it. Well, I got dark really fast, didn't I? So Just Zero is a zero waste organization. We are a bunch of lawyers and scientists and nerds. And we like to write laws and figure out what the best policies are at the county level, at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level. And we called ourselves Just Zero 4 years ago when we started because we want to make sure that our practices are fair. If we're not taking care of those amongst us who is most impacted by waste, we are not solving the waste problem. And we work on waste issues soup to nuts. So we work on corporate pollution, which many times there are a lot of facilities and corporate interests that are stopping us from implementing good solutions. We're moving towards healthy environments, preventable waste, that's a big one, and zero waste systems. We have defined this so that we're really anything that we want to be within the solid waste system. We don't do everything, but we do a lot. Let's talk about where you are now. Oh, before I get to that, one other thing. I think it's really important in this space to remember who you're hearing from and what their motivation is. Courtney mentioned that she's a researcher, a cancer researcher. So she's somebody, a scientist, who's looking at this from that lens. We at Just Zero do not take money from corporations that benefit from pollution. In other words, if you just don't. And that sounds like, well, of course, you're a nonprofit. American Chemistry Council is a $100 million a year nonprofit that's funded by, the industry, the petrochemical industry. The Recycling Partnership, Dow, Waste Management, that's who funds them. Keep America Beautiful, funded by Coke and all the beverage industry. So when you look at a nonprofit, look at who's funding them and who you're hearing from. I have no skin in this game. I already shut down the waste facility in my community, okay? I am not here because if this shuts down, I'm gonna make any money. I will never make much money doing this, I'm telling you that right now. And that's fine. But the point being, when someone comes to you and says, this doesn't work, and it doesn't benefit me to close, I don't run a composting company, I just don't. So when I tell you this doesn't work, 100% I'm basing it on facts, and please, if any of you have questions, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to send you all my resources. I am not pulling this out of my ass, okay? We totally have backup for everything we do. So I've learned a lot about Westchester in the last few days, and I would like to just comment, I'm not from here. So I understand that every community is different, every county is different, every city and town is different, and your solutions are going to be slightly different. Today, though, I want to talk about big sweeping themes and move right through them, and understanding that they'll be a little bit different, and different things will work in your community on the ground, but that there are some things that you should avoid no matter what, and some things that you should embrace no matter what as big themes. So first off, you've already heard burning is bad. All of these points were already raised by Courtney. She did a great job. And incineration leads to landfilling too. You're not avoiding landfilling by incinerating. The other thing that I think should be raised, not only is this really expensive to the county, $80 a ton, to the cities and towns, it sounds like around $45 a ton. So we're talking about $125 a ton for these materials. But the other piece of this that you have to understand is that you're also burning sludge there, okay? Now that's not something I'm gonna go into in detail today, but sewage sludge is one of the most toxic, nasty, varied chemical loads of any material that you're gonna find. PFAS, heavy metals, any toxic, any microplastic you can think of, it's gonna be in there. That's a whole nother problem, but that's another whole reason to shut this facility down. Because burning trash here, terrible. Burning sludge here, also really terrible. The other thing that I think we want to make sure that we pull out is that this is the Chevy, the 1984 Chevy of incinerators. This facility, I now drive a car that you plug in, right? I didn't bring it here today, but we just bought a car. You plug it in. There's dings anytime I try and change lanes, whether there's another car there or not. Cameras every which way, up, down, sideways. The car that you drive now is a high-tech machine. This incinerator is literally a Chevy. We're talking with a cigarette lighter in the front and a radio, right? It probably didn't, maybe it had a cassette deck, all right? This thing is a dinosaur and should be shut down. And they will keep it going, as I already said, as long as they possibly can. And it's burning about 650,000 tons of MSW a year and 600,000 tons of sewage sludge. What do we need to do to move forward? You're locked into the polluting, burning, and burying system. And as the previous slide showed, that's what the waste companies want you to think, that it's one or the other, which is not true. You're locked in, you have weak state programs, better than most states, quite honestly. At least you have a bottle bill. And it includes water here in New York. You have a bag ban, but there's still weak state programs compared to what you need. You don't have a good zero waste plan for the county, and you're making Wind Corporation a tremendous amount of money, and it doesn't deliver on local jobs. Remember these principles as you're trying to solve this problem. The cheapest waste is the waste you don't create. Systems that producer pays for are better. You should not, the taxpayers should not be paying for this. Real composting and recycling, you need to check that it's real. Really, truly circular and sustainable. And then lastly, everything that happens, you not only need staff to make sure that this is all working and really fund that staff, you need good contracts, and I know this is the lawyer in me, I'm not trying to hire all my brethren, I promise, but it's true. You need good contracts, you need transparency, and you need enforcement, or none of this is going to happen. So, as Courtney already showed you, we've got paper, 32% paper and cardboard, 24% food scraps and yard trimmings, 14% plastic, 7% metals, 5% textiles, 4% glass, 3% wood, and then 10% miscellaneous. These are big categories, and they're more complicated within the category, right? Like some of the paper and cardboard might be lined with plastic, like a carton or something, or some of the wood might be treated wood. But as Courtney pointed out already, I see nothing but opportunity here. Glass is infinitely recyclable. Metal is infinitely recyclable. Food should be eaten by people, animals, or composted. And the paper and cardboard, that cardboard is a moneymaker. So you need to decide now that you're going to not allow wind to keep operating past 2029. You have to say, we're not going to do this, okay? And just remember too, that Connecticut just shut down Mira. They shut down a big incinerator. Why can't you? You need to decide that and act, not say, well, if we do, then we'll do this. They will find a way to put roadblocks in your path to stop you. You need to decide to do it and do it. What does this mean? Number one, you need a good zero waste plan. Now, again, I'm not from here, so I'm not telling you which towns should band together or if it should be county-wide or the details of that. Maybe one town has a really good zero waste plan already and the others can replicate it. But a really good zero waste plan is important for a few reasons. I have been working in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, where I live, for a very, very long time. I'm very old. And in Sturbridge, because I grew up there too, and in Sturbridge, we created an open space plan. And we have been chipping away at those things. And what happens when you have a plan in place, whether it's open space or zero waste or housing or any of those pieces, is you bring everyone together and they agree on the principles. Because only an asshole will say, yes, we should burn waste, right? Nobody thinks it's a good idea. So you agree on the principles. It should be fair, it should be cheap as possible, it should be sustainable. And they agree on those principles. And then every other decision falls from that. And plans are made that maybe don't seem possible, and then a few years later you have an opportunity to do them, and you've already built that consensus. That is crucial. And you probably know this more than almost any audience I've talked to because you're involved in this work. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a good plan in place and then at every meeting say, you already agreed to this. Shut it down, Ernie. Sit down, okay? You already agreed to this. I just made up Ernie. I don't know if there's an Ernie here, but just saying. So then you need to make sure it's transparent and data-driven. You need to make sure your goals are in adherence with, I love the Zero Waste International Alliance principles. They're no messing about. They're asking for no toxic, zero waste programs that are as sustainable as possible. Check it out, the ZWIA website, it's fantastic. You don't want to water that stuff down. You don't want to say sustainable or no zero waste to landfill or circular and just make something up. Use some good principles. And then lastly, do it quickly. Do not put a plan in place that takes effect in 20, 30, 50 years. Because you know what that means? You're lying to yourselves, right? Nobody is doing anything if you put a long-term plan in place. Every good plan that actually gets something done, 5, 7 years. Because you're gonna be dead after that, right? So you gotta get this stuff done as quickly as possible. 5, 7 years. The second piece, so that's the zero waste plan. The second piece, and many of you are already familiar with this concept, but I just want to run through it one more time. Unit-based pricing, pay as you throw, save money and reduce trash. I don't care what you call it. What it means is you have a bag with your town or your county's name on it, and you can only throw trash away as a resident of that municipality if the bag is purchased for that purpose, with that name, with that printed thing on it. They can be different colors, they can have different printing, whatever you want to do that works. And you set a price point for that bag. In Worcester, I looked it up today, it's $1.75. Worcester has halved, Worcester, okay? Worcester is not Cambridge or Berkeley, okay? Worcester is Worcester, okay? I grew up in the shadow of Worcester, I can say Worcester. It is Worcester. And Worcester has cut their trash in half, okay? In half with pay-as-you-throw, all right? It is actually, in some ways, very similar to this area. It's a wonderful, wonderful city, don't get me wrong, but it is not a bunch of folks who are sitting around thinking about climate change, right? So Worcester has cut their trash in half because they have to buy a bag that says Worcester on it. It has to be a yellow bag, or they are not allowed to throw their trash out. It's as simple as that. You can use a cart system and put the bags in the carts. That's very doable. There's an organization called Waste Zero. It's a consultant. I am not pimping for Waste Zero, just to be clear. Like, they seem great, I like them and the work they've done, but there are lots of other organizations and consultants who've done the same. You want a bag system, not a cart system. Vermont went to a cart system. Vermont is pretty much run by Casella. The waste system in Vermont is run by Casella Waste, which is where they're from. And they all went to a cart system that's supposed to be pay-as-you-throw. They have not reduced their trash because everyone's got a big cart. That's not pay-as-you-throw. You want a bag system, whether you use carts or not is irrelevant, but the bag is the key. And then if people are producing more trash, you just increase the price of the bag. This reduces the trash in half. Half, okay? Some of it goes into recycling, but it makes a tremendous difference right up front because people don't buy the stuff that has to go in that bag, plain and simple. They also do a better job sorting their recycling, and if you have a composting program, they do a better job with that too. Also, that bag fee can help pay for disposal. So it's a direct, if I'm producing more trash, I have to pay for disposal, more for disposal than the person who's producing less trash, and that's only fair. The other thing too is that I really strongly recommend that you do this as broadly as possible, because if you have to have a fight in every city and town about this, it's gonna be a big pain in the neck and a lot of work. Get the county to do it. This is how you really cut your trash before you have to shut down an incinerator. And then also, make sure you take care of those most vulnerable amongst you. And by that I mean, for instance, you could do SNAP benefits. If you are eligible for SNAP benefits, you get this many bags a year. Because you don't want to be making this too onerous for those who are struggling already. And if you do all those things, you will reduce your trash. So remember, we talked about 4 tons of trash equals 1 ton of ash. Let's get Westchester's trash down by 75% to 25%. I have just halved it with one program, okay? A program that's gonna pay for itself. Next, your food and yard waste. This is another low-hanging fruit, if you will. So, compost. For the love of God, compost, okay? Now, you can do home composting. You can throw it over a wall in the woods like I do, because I live in a big property. You can do a drop-off program. We're talking about the Oscar drop-off program in Boston. They have collection in Boston. You can do a collection program. You could do windrow and anaerobic digestion processing. There's all kinds of different ways to make this work. Once you require the diversion of food from the waste stream, and Massachusetts is going to be, by 2030, diverting all food from the waste stream. Yeah. I've got to be a little bit critical, which I'll get to in a minute, which is why people at Mass DEP, I torture them, but that's amazing. And New York City's already doing that, Vermont is doing that. You have a program in New York already, state, that says large producers can't throw their food in the trash. Everybody's food should be out of the trash. What that does, it means that your regular trash doesn't have to be picked up as often, because it doesn't stink anymore, right? It actually solves your rat, your vector, your seagull problem, because you do a better job keeping that food separate and getting it collected. The other thing too is that, and this is something that people have trouble getting their heads around. Yes, you have to set up a system for collection. The town of Hamilton, Massachusetts banned food from disposal. Casella Waste now picks up the trash in one half of the truck and the food in the other half of the truck. It's not rocket science. It's not easy. You gotta figure out a program, you gotta educate folks, you gotta have signage, all the things. You guys know, you guys do this stuff, so you know. But it's doable, and the tipping fee should be half. Especially if you're paying $125 a ton at the incinerator, the tipping fee should be more like $45.50, so less than half, I would guess. Again, the devil's in the details, I know that, but this is really doable. And that in New York, we've already said that's a huge chunk of your trash right there. We've already gotten to 75% diversion. Now, there might be some overlap, so not perfect, but we're already close to getting there. The other piece I would like to mention is that composting creates tremendous numbers of good local jobs. tremendous numbers of good local jobs. Not only is there a facility where the food is being processed, and those are good local jobs, because you don't want to haul your food very fast. This is not going to be shipped to Georgia to be processed, right? It's going to be done locally. Not only that, but we see other jobs come from there, not only through food donation and collection, through composting, actual facilities, but also landscaping and other soil amendment. A lot of times too, these facilities can be supplemental to local farms. So they'll have anaerobic digestion that handles their manure, their cuttings, and then food. So there's a huge financial benefit, not only in the savings for the taxpayers here in the county, but also a huge financial benefit in new good green jobs. And you can't beat that with a stick. I would say, and this is something that I'm struggling with in Boston and Cambridge, and when I say struggling, harassing the crap out of the decision makers, and that is that, and we see this in LA too, in LA County and other places around the country. The waste companies have created a model where they take the food, they cut it up, slurry it, drive it to a wastewater treatment plant, and process it with sewage sludge. That's what New York City wants to do. We submitted comments on that this winter. That is a terrible idea, because then the material that comes out of the anaerobic digester, which I can talk about what that is if folks have questions about it, it's like a stomach. But the material that comes out, the digestate, has to be burned or buried. So that's no good. It has to be disposed of, in other words. So we want to make sure that we're not processing nice, clean food scraps with sewage sludge. That's horrible.
Garbage disposal.
Yeah, it's just more garbage. It's just moving garbage around.
The appliance, garbage disposal.
No, yeah, don't do that either. That's bad, because it's going into your sewage sludge. That's where it goes. Your wastewater, your garbage disposal goes into your wastewater treatment system. And then the food is being asked, unless it goes somewhere else. I don't know your garbage disposal. But yeah, don't do that. We can talk about that.
New York City does it.
I know, yeah, that's exactly the point. So that's why they got a stern letter from me. And then the other thing too, is that we're seeing grocery stores really push depackaging plants. And what that means is there's food being taken out of the packages through a roller system. Unfortunately, there's a lot of plastic left in that food, because the ideal is to then feed that food to pigs, for instance. But the pigs in Vermont are very upset about this, and there's a lot of plastic in it. So the farmers are no longer allowing them to have that food, and that's something that really needs to be regulated carefully until we get to the point where we're not putting our food in toxic plastic, which is another whole topic for another day. So that's food and yard waste. So we got zero waste plan, we got pay-as-you-throw, unit-based pricing, whatever you want to call it, good bags, and we've got food and yard waste. And we're already, chipping away at this. As you all are probably aware, producer pay system really, really worked. I always joke that if there was one policy I could marry, it would be the bottle bill. I would be Mrs. Bottle Bill. And the reason for that is because if you modernize the bottle bill, you can get all the containers from nips up to liquor bottles, glass, plastic, and aluminum out of the trash. And as we saw, there's a lot of not only plastic, but especially metal and glass in the trash right now. And the metal and glass in your recycling, your curbside recycling, gets lost. The plastic gets downcycled into clothing, which is nasty. It doesn't get made into bottles. The glass gets made into roadbed or landfill cover. And the metal, I always thought, well, at least the metal gets captured in curbside. The metal gets stuck in the cardboard bales. I know you guys have a lot of dual stream systems, which is great. But if it's going through a MRF, a lot of the aluminum is lost that way. So bottle bills, almost 100% of the glass, plastic, and aluminum is made back into bottles and cans. And you don't have to pay for it. You're paying for your curbside recycling in your recycling system. The bottle bill is paid for by the beverage companies who made the mess in the first place. It's a producer pay system. You all are also probably aware that extended producer responsibility for packaging has been a heated struggle here in New York for the last 5 years. The PREA bill is very close to passing, better chance than it has in the past. Happy to answer questions about that, but I think you have legislator who's going to speak in detail about it, so I won't go into it. But again, reducing plastic, reducing toxicity, getting the producer to pay for the packaging, those are all good things. And we really need to be weaning ourselves off of plastic because it's never going to be recycled. Other than the bottle plastic, none of it gets recycled in a circular way. It either gets downcycled or thrown out or burned. So really we should don't focus on recycling plastic. I would, in fact, advise that folks not even include it in curbside at this point because we need to send the message that this is all baloney. But that's another whole conversation too. Lastly, I cannot say enough about cardboard recycling. Cardboard recycling, there's so much cardboard in our trash, and you're all blaming yourselves for whatever you got sent by Amazon recently or whatever when I say that. You're all saying like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have gotten my toilet paper online. No, that's not the real problem. The real problem is the secondary packaging. Anything you buy in a store comes in a huge cardboard box at that store. That's where our cardboard load is. So anything your city or county can do to capture the cardboard, which is a cash cow, you should do. Not only should you be collecting the residential cardboard and keeping it clean and selling it, that's fantastic. But get any cardboard that you can from the ICI, the institutional, commercial, or industrial sector, and get that into the system. That is an immense moneymaker. If you've already got a place where you're keeping it dry and you already have a contract with a cardboard recycler, I can't say enough about that. I know, again, that this is something that people's eyes glaze over, even the people on my team, their eyes glaze over about this. But if your contract says you have to produce a certain amount of trash, you always will. Your contracts, again, I haven't reviewed the contracts for the county, but I'm trying to put together model contracts for anybody in the country to use for composting, recycling, and for trash. Because many places are required to produce a certain amount of trash, end of story, they owe that much money to the company. Many places, if something's not recyclable and needs to be trashed, they double dip, they charge the city again for it. Newton, that has happened too, for instance, Newton, Mass. You need transparent tracking and reporting so that you know what companies are doing for you. I know of no other sector where you could hire someone, and it's like getting your haircut and not being allowed to see the haircut, right? Like, you know, in real time, you know, like not being able to, like having to wear a blindfold until it was done or something. The waste companies don't want to tell you anything. Your contract should ensure that they have to, and that it's also on the website, because these are, again, municipal funds being spent, and there should be as much transparency as possible here. And there also should be real recycling and real composting standards right there in the contract. If they are sending it to a sewage sludge facility so that they don't have to pay for the processing, screw them, right? Like that should not be part of the contract. They should have to compost it. If there's a problem with the material, they should come back to you so you can fix the material, and then you'll have real composting or real recycling, for instance. This, you know, putting stuff into the ether, which has allowed plastic recycling, this pretend plastic recycling to happen for so long, for instance, in my opinion. And then also, and this is, I'm speaking directly to anybody, any of the municocrats, as my dad calls them, anybody who works at the municipal level, who's really running things. You need to be able to pay your bills. You need to be able to ticket, a little ticket, every time this is screwed up. And then that way you can pay your people and have enough people for enforcement. That's something that's so important across the board. We never have enough staff in local, municipal, county, or state government to do a good job. And now you've seen what's happened in the federal government. We're going to be relying on folks locally even more. So we need to make sure that we have money for those folks in any of the programs that you put in place. So you can save tax dollars, reduce your trash by 75%, and increase good local jobs in the next 5 years. You can. And you just have to decide to do it, honestly. Look at this chart. Okay, if you look at this chart, you will see that the red, it adds up to 227,000 tons, just based on the tonnage of this county, okay, when I add the red up. Now I put those in red because food scraps and yard trimmings, you can get almost all of it. There's always, wastage, there's always some contamination. I realize how hard this is on the ground. But that food and yard waste does not have to be in the trash, no question. The same with metal, anything metal, and the same with anything glass. In fact, if you had glass and metal collection, and then cardboard and paper collection for your recycling, and really enforced that curb with a clear Westchester bag, stamped Westchester on the side, it was clear, you could make that happen pretty quickly. And of course, a composting program. None of that's easy, but I'm talking about right there, 227,000 tons. The blue, the paper and cardboard, the plastics, and the textiles, and I didn't even include the wood, because I'm not exactly sure what they mean by it, that's 331,500 tons a year. That blue, you definitely can recycle a lot of that, especially if you expand the bottle bill and the EPR bill, and put the EPR bill in place. Oh, I did put the wood in there. Yeah, that did include the wood. But the point being about the blue stuff, that's the stuff that people will stop buying if you put a pay-as-you-throw program in place too. They're really low. So between those two, I think you're way over 75% if you have a good zero waste plan in place, good pay-as-you-throw bag system in place, composting, strengthen the bottle bill, which I know you don't have total control over, and then really work on your local recycling to focus on metal, glass, and cardboard. So, and the last thing I will say before we go to questions, do not be fooled again. Do not be fooled again. Right now, Waste Management is partnering with Goodwill and a company called Reju from France. People think anything French is good. That is not true. Zero waste came from Italy. Italians are better than French people. I'm just going to put it out there. It's a hot take. Italian food is also better than French food. Zero waste is much, much better than any high heat process to break down materials. Whether it's packaging, turf, clothing, carpet, or just trash in general, industry has been trying for decades, since 1950, to burn this stuff or heat it up at high degrees. This is the new version. You saw you have the Chevy. This is their new version. It's really kind of like the the Cybertruck. Yeah, it's a Cybertruck. And it doesn't work well, it's ugly, it's polluting. And what it does is it breaks down these materials, plastics largely, and then burns the components for fuel. They can't make new clothes or new packaging or new turf out of it. They just burn it for fuel. So that's what's being suggested for Rochester, New York now. So don't be fooled again by these new technologies, these new Cybertruck, because it's the same thing. They want to make a lot of money, not create many jobs, pretend to take care of a problem, and really the answer to the problem is to do things differently upstream. So don't panic. You can do this, I promise, because other people have. Again, if Worcester has got a pay-as-you-throw program in place, I know that Westchester County can do it. Please use a QR code. Please join our newsletter. Feel free to give Just Zero money. That's how I pay my people. That's how I pay the 10 of us. And then lastly, I will say, before you leave today, please call your assembly member and the speaker about the EPR bill. It's at a crucial point, and local systems need the funding to do this work.